This is where things get really intense. It's time to start counting down the top 11. This installment will be looking at some of the absolute strongest and most used cards in the original set. It was a difficult process not only narrowing down to this point, but arranging them as well. So let's begin with a very atrocious Pokemon.
11. Gyarados. Gyarados is undeniably ferocious and it's the complete opposite of Magikarp. It has an incredible HP as well as 2 solid attacks. For 3 energies, Dragon Rage is a high damaging and reasonably affordable move and can effortlessly eliminate most below average cards in 1 turn. For anything stronger, it can try Bubble Beam, which costs 1 energy more, does 10 damage less, but has the chance to paralyze, meaning Gyarados could feasibly take out a Pokemon with 90 HP in 2 turns without getting a scratch or facing any negative repercussions. Even though it has a plethora of valuable skills, Gyarados is not without its flaws. Both attacks will take quite a bit of time to power up. Bubble Beam basically makes its first attack obsolete and has a high retreat cost. Nevertheless, these slight lapses pale in comparison to its vicious moves and great stats that also include a fighting resistance and an atypical weakness for a water type. All in all, there's little doubt that Gyarados is still one of the strongest cards out there and is a fearsome card to face. 10. Nidoking. This card is absolutely devastating. It didn't earn that king title for nothing. Toxic is arguably one of the best attacks in the game. For 3 energies, you can potentially deal 60 damage from 1 use. The poison it causes is double the strength, and without several full heals with the capability to easily switch, the opponent is pretty much done for. It is even grander if you knock an opponent out from poison after their turn, and it gives you another opportunity to toxify their next card. Its other move, Thrash, is only viable after you've poisoned the opposition. The potential 10 damage to self is worth it if it can save you from taking 20 or more from an opponent, but since it costs the same number of energies as Toxic, it's rarely worth using. Overall, a powered up Nidoking is one of the most intimidating cards to go up against, as he will knock you out much faster than you will him, and its high HP and lethal attack power make him extremely adept at taking down all threats from big to small. There are only a few psychic cards that have a chance to overcome him, because if left unchecked, Nidoking will cause a quick, painful, and venomous death. 9. Alakazam. By itself, it's not that special, but its Pokemon Power damage swap allows for some intense combinations that make Alakazam nearly immortal, as long as you don't get status affected or knocked out in a single turn. You'll want to be prepared with trainer cards like Full Heals, Scoop Ups, and Poke Centers, and the other factors bring in expendable tanks. Don't bother without cards like Kangaskhan, Snorlaxes, and Chanseys. The strategy is simple to use. Place Alakazam preferably on your bench, give and take damage as normal, transfer your damage onto the bench fodder, eliminate those damage counters through the previously mentioned trainer cards, and keep repeating until hopefully you force your opponent to run out of cards before you do. Even when it's not deflecting damage, Alakazam can still hold its own fairly well in battle. While Confuse Ray doesn't do as much damage as Kadabra's Super Psy, as long as you get a successful confusion and eventually, it is more effective. Although Alakazam seems to have an excellent strategy, it is by no means invincible. Cards that force Alakazam into the center stage can potentially ruin your strategy, as it costs 3 energies to retreat it. While there aren't many cards that can do 80 or more damage in a single turn, they do exist and are Alakazam's biggest fear. Cards that can negate its Pokemon power through effects are also legitimate counters as well. However, the damage swap strategy is generally effective and can certainly help tip the match in your favor if used properly. Even if your plans are countered, Alakazam can still cause quite a bit of devastation towards your opponent and is easily one of the best psychic cards in the original set. 8. Snorlax. Snorlax is pretty much what you'd expect, a giant wall. Despite being known as the laziest Pokemon around, due to its Pokemon power it ironically can't be put to sleep unless it already is asleep, which is mildly paradoxical. Anyway, this power adds to Snorlax's defenses. With 90 HP it's a good shield, but even better it can attack when necessary, and Body Slam isn't bad at all. Body Slam requires a lot of energy for a decent damage and effect output. If you can paralyze the opponent, it certainly adds to Snorlax's stalling capabilities. Unfortunately, heavy hitters like Hitmonchan and many other fighting types Snorlax is weak against, which don't really rely on status effects for power, are capable of taking out Snorlax even before you get those 2 double colorless energies on it. Snorlax also has a ridiculously high retreat cost, meaning once you put it out, you're practically committed, because paying that retreat toll on its own is purely wasteful. Overall, due to its colorless versatility, easiness to play, resistance to psychic moves, great wall attributes, and ability to at least threaten the opposing Pokemon instead of idly taking damage, Snorlax is a tremendous addition to most decks. 7. Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan is another normal type wall, and its most important role is to draw cards, which doesn't sound all that impressive, but it still serves a valuable purpose, as the more cards you have in your hand, the better edge you'll have over your opponent. It's really important to be careful and manage just how many you're taking, because if your opponent has some effective stall cards, you can sabotage yourself and guarantee a more decisive victory for them. When it's not drawing cards at fetch, Kangaskhan has the potential to attack for damage. Comet Punch is expensive but has some force attached to it, so you figure with tossing 4 coins for 20 damage each, you'll probably land 40 damage each time, which isn't that bad of a trade-off for a basic Pokemon you can send out right away. Its psychic resistance might end up allowing more time for survival, but its fighting weakness may lead to a quick knockout. However, its 90 HP makes that a much smaller possibility. Kangaskhan's best strategy is to be used very early on in the match to give you a few extra cards, and once you have that advantage, use your more developed hand to implement your deck's best features and abilities with more comfort and accuracy. Due to its incredible HP and unique trainer-like attributes, Kangaskhan is definitely a card to add to your arsenal. 6. Chansey. It's tied for the highest HP in the original set, and it's only a basic Pokemon. Chansey's purpose is to wall and stall. Even the strongest attackers have trouble knocking out this egg Pokemon. Its first attack, Scrunch, has a 50% chance of negating only damage, which is a fantastic move to have for 120 HP basic Pokemon. Double Edge is a better version of Self-Destruct because it has a much smaller chance of knocking you out. It's one of the best spite moves around and can make your opponent tread lightly, knowing you can deliver this deadly blow when provoked. This attack works extremely well with Scrunch. By holding off damage, you can wait and set up until you're powered up and at your limit, and then fire off Double Edge, hopefully taking your opponent out with you. Chansey can easily absorb hit after hit, and it's difficult not to find a good use for it. With its psychic resistance, unbelievable HP, and synergetic attack combination, Chansey can both buy you some much needed time or unleash absolute fury. It always kind of bugged me that Gyarados' Dragon Rage didn't do 40 damage like it did in the video games. Regardless, only 5 cards remain in this series. Which one will earn that number 1 spot? Find out next time in the final installment of the original Pokemon cards ranking and review series. See you then.